I'm here to speak to you about Prakriti and performing arts. It's a topic that's very close to my heart. And I just thought that, we could share something together, share something about nature, about the feminine principle, and how it governs our performing arts. I'd like to begin with a small shloka, so please bear with me. I hope you're all in here. Namaskar. That was a prayer to the Mother Goddess, who we know was born. This shloka, this beautiful shloka, talks about how she was born to the mighty mountain, Mathangatani. Manasas Marami, I always bow to you. You are the one who plays on the gem-studded veena. And how beautifully you play that. Your voice, the sound that comes out of your lips is so pleasant and soothing and beautiful. You are a natural beauty, fully endowed with lasya. And I bow to you, O awesome daughter of the universe. Prakriti and performing arts. Prakriti, what is Prakriti? There are many, many different explanations to what Prakriti is. And throughout our growing up years, when we hear of Prakriti, we hear of it in a different sense, with a different intent, with a different meaning. Prakriti literally means the natural condition of anything, or the most original or primordial state of anything that is found in the entire creation. Pra means in the beginning, and Kriti means creation. Prakriti is therefore the beginning of creative work in its natural state. Prakriti is creation itself, the kinetic force through which all that is manifest and unmanifest in the universe, all that is original, natural, creative, and immutable in this whole process of creation. Prakriti denotes the state at the beginning of creation in its purest form. So when we speak of Prakritik, we speak of a natural state, the unmanifest, the original, the eternal. When the process of creativity begins and things begin to manifest, this process is called Vikriti in the Hindu school of thought. Now, what is Vikriti? Vikriti is the manifest, real world as we know it. The trees, the birds, the bees, and everything that we speak of as nature, habitat, environment. Vikriti is the modified version of what existed naturally in its original form. So Vikriti is the manifest or modified version of Prakriti. The world as we know it emerges from Prakriti, which is original, and from this perspective, the natural world that we call Prakriti in common parlance is only a manifestation, a projection, or modification of it. The world that we live in is a natural world only in a derivative sense, not in its original sense. This brings us to the concept of Maya or illusion. Everything in creation is a modification of something else, and together they create an illusion of existence, just as light does. The world that we live in, therefore, is asat, unreal, or an illusion, Maya. In the Hindu school of thought, this concept of Maya or illusion, or the illusory world that we live in, is very, very important. And it translates to everything that we do. The trees, the mountains, the rivers, insects, smallest being, the insects, animals, the tiger, elephant, deer, all these animals, and those lovely, lovely birds, the cuckoo birds, the ferocious birds, the eagles, the doves, and all the birds, and all of us human beings, we are all reduced. If we are all reduced in our primordial state or causes, in which there will be only two forms of eternal reality, Purusha and Prakriti. So basically what I'm trying to say, or what our rishis, our great scholars, great philosophers have said, is that the only reality in this whole Maya of existence is Purusha, the immutable, constant, static force or energy, if you want to call it as, and Prakriti, the mutable, constant energy, force, whatever you want to call it, but creative force. Now, both Purusha and Prakriti are indivisible, indestructible, and eternal. The confusion here is, if Prakriti is indivisible, indestructible, and eternal, then how does it manifest to us in our real world, or what we perceive as real world? This confusion is valid, but let me tell you, I also often asked people who've spoken about Prakriti as the supreme creative force, but unmanifest. That creative force before creativity or the process of creativity began, and Vikriti as the concept of modification of Prakriti, which we perceive as real. And when I asked how does this happen, the philosophers spoke about these concepts and said that something that is static, unchanged, immutable, the Purusha, is the consciousness, while the kinetic force that awakens this consciousness and creates all that we perceive as real around us is Prakriti. But Prakriti manifests itself, in different forms, in different gunas, in different tattvas, and therefore it is not the same Prakriti that we believe is the primordial kinetic energy of the universe. The potent creative energy that we call Prakriti is also the basis on which all art forms in India, Bharatavarsha, developed. The arts also believe that everything is Maya or an illusion, and that the process of life is to get a final release from this Maya, from this illusory world, to become one with Godhood, with the spirit, with that higher consciousness, which is immutable, original. So when we talk about God and Goddess, we're talking of Purusha and Prakriti. But we haven't realized that both Purusha and Prakriti is actually Godhead, one Godhead. So the Godhead that we hope to merge in is both Purusha and Prakriti. So therefore, the imagery that you see of Ardhanarishwara, where we talk about the form being half male and half female, because the masculine form is unable to indulge or create anything without the kinetic or the potent form of creation, which is Prakriti, the feminine form. So, all reason for creation, therefore, becomes feminine, becomes the female, becomes woman. And this is something that for a long time the arts have encapsulated and have brought forth, has they brought the imagery of this, the idea of creation itself. It brought that has brought that imagery in front of us, so that we can see what it is, that we don't have to wonder about how is this possible if all that we see around us is unreal, and that we don't see and don't perceive is real. Then what is reality and what is unreality? So therefore this concept of this illusory world, Maya, that we live in, and that everything else is Mahamaya. It's a great Maya, a great illusion of which you also are a part of. The arts, I mean, what is the purpose of all Indian arts, or all arts that are born out of Hindu philosophy? The purpose of these arts was to drive the Vikshaka or the spectator or the Rasika towards, I mean, through all the maze of life, with all its myriad, relationships, emotions, with all, I mean, the physical and the metaphysical planes of existence. And finally, after having gone through this maze of life, to give the spectator and the artist the final release, to merge with Godhead. And I keep saying Godhead because to me, that supreme reality is both masculine and feminine. It can't represent just one gender. I mean, that's not possible. All of creation, like I said, and like I keep saying, like everyone keeps saying, is in the feminine gender. So there is something called Moola Prakriti, which is that little point, that split second, not even a second, a minute point of a second before creation. And Sambhuti Prakriti, with its tattvas and gunas, that is manifest in our world. So that little minute particle, even the greatest of physicists internationally have not been able to discover. They call it the Busan, the Busan theory, the God particle, That's what they called it. That split second of a second of a second of a second before creation begins, before all that we perceive as part of creation manifests, the God particle. And what is it that gives that second, that Moola Prakriti and Sambhuti Prakriti? So between Mula Prakriti and Sambhuti Prakriti is the God particle when creation begins. While gunas are movement or variety of creation in the manifest world, tattvas, with its subset sattva, rajas, tamas, we've heard of it, all these qualities of the universe. Sattvic quality, there's a rajasic quality, there's a tamasic quality. So sattva, rajas, tamas, these contribute to the diversity of creation. So traditional Indian philosophy sees nature as Prakriti, as a living, creative process, the feminine principle from which all life emerges. The art forms of Bharat, Bharatavarsha, have always encapsulated, like I said before, both in form and content, the philosophical aspirations of the Indian mind. So these art forms were not merely for entertainment, which is true of the Western world. I mean, the arts are there, to perfect the nuances of the human body, the movement of the body, and to perfect many other nuances so as to be able to entertain people. That was not our purpose. The purpose of arts in India were to release the human soul from the cycle of birth and rebirth. I don't want to call it death. So, like you say, I mean, you talk about the Trimurtis, you say Brahma represents, creation, birth, then there is Vishnu for preservation, and there is Shiva for destruction. And they said, no, not destruction, call it recreation. So to me, Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva are in the feminine gender. Why? You may ask. Because, if you see, I mean, if you go back, like I said, you deduced or you reduce forms around you and you say, what is the original? What could be the original? What could be the genesis of a tree, for example? A plant, a tiny plant that you planted. What could be the genesis of a plant, for example? Maybe a seed. So then how did the seed, come to being? Same theory, that God particle. So if we're talking about the God particle, I mean, I want to use the word God particle because I know a lot of youngsters understand this. And those who are educated or who are studying physics, for example, when they talk about creation and we speak about our concept of creation, of Purusha and Prakriti, of the sounds of the universe, represented in the Damaru or Shiva, or this whole concept of Trinity, Trimurtis. When we speak about this, there are a lot of people who kind of keep saying, oh, but it's not scientifically proved. Where's the science behind it? I mean, this is all about, spirituality and, textual references, and but you don't have any evidence. What is the evidence? What is the science behind it? Even science, like I said, the greatest of scientists, when they have, gone on reduction, atom, whatever, micro, neutron, proton, that is, they have come to that little particle which they have not been able to reduce. And they call that the God particle, right? The God particle. And it was very interesting. When I visited this place in Geneva, the statue I saw was that of Nataraja, the beautiful iconographic image of Nataraja, who we believe, as dancers, was the creator of the entire universe. We actually believe that the sound of the universe came from Om, came from the Damaru, the initial sounds from the Damaru of Shiva. Shiva holds fire. Shiva is form itself, and Shiva is also the formless. So, I do believe that there is a scientific basis to whatever was written textually in our land, in the land of Bharat, India. So, all art forms, like I said, of our land have always encapsulated, both in form and content, the philosophical aspirations of the Indian mind, or the Hindu mind, if you will. The internal evidence of the Natya Shastra enables us to contextualize the text within the greater matrix of the Indian cultural traditions at the level of concept, speculative thought, epics, mythology, and ritualistic practices or traditions, both Vedic and others. So most of our, the hastas or the mudras that we incorporate in dance, whether they be the samyuta hastas, the asamyuta hastas, with their multiple meaning, some of them you also see in worship when the great gurus do some sort of a yagna or some sort of a ritualistic offering. They do use many of these mudras that we use in our dance forms. Classical arts are to be viewed as a complex body of knowledge that facilitates the understanding of illusion within illusion. Now you may say, what is illusion within illusion? I have told you that all that is that you perceive as manifest, all that you see around you, that you think are real, are a modification of the real. They are not the real, they're representative of the real. So all that you view as real is already Maya, is already an illusion. The Sambhuti Prakriti. Like I said, with its gunas and tattvas, its diversity, its variety, it is an illusion. The actor, the singer, the singer-dancer, already living in this illusory world that they perceive as real for the moment, they create for their audiences images, sounds, situations that take them through a gamut of human experiences, narrated through multiple stories. So they're trying to create an illusion within illusion. The stage, the space of the stage, the space of the actor, the space of the dancer, the space of the singer, dancer, musician is an illusory space where they're trying to create something for their audiences. But the space that they are living in, which they, in their reality, think is the actual real space, is also an illusion, because that's not Mula Prakriti, but it's Sambhuti Prakriti. And therefore, the purpose of this actor or dancer, singer, who are living in this illusory world, is to create for their audiences images, like I said, images. What are the images that you create in dance? You create all images. You show them what the gods were like. Show them the lives of the gods, the beauty of the gods, the beautiful imagined forms of these gods, the complex relationships of these gods with each other, the complex relationships of these gods with their consorts, or with their children, or with others. There are stories about them. So you create that on stage. And then you create stories of human beings. People poets have written about, saying that these are people of the real world. You create their stories and their relationships, their desires, the fulfillment of their desires, the sounds that they perceive, the sound of the bee, the very constant sound in dance. When someone has to get into a state of, of deep consciousness, not a sleeping state, a silent state of deep consciousness, you think or you try to create the sound of the bees, the constant buzzing sound of the bees, like the buzz of the world. There's the sounds of the cuckoo birds. They're talking to you, singing to you. There are all these multiple birds that are flipping around. And you hear them these days, by the way, don't you? A lot of you must be hearing these. For a long time, we never heard birds in our country. There was just the sound of traffic moving. But now, now you hear the sound of birds. And you see images of the deer walking. Peacock, that sound is not pleasant. The peacock is beautiful to see, majestic, beautiful, lovely bird, but can't sing. The moment the peacock opens its mouth, it breathes. So you see all this, and then, and you try to create that. Create that for an audience to make them believe it's real. So when we talk about the states of the audience, we can come to that. It's a little bit technical, and I'm not sure who's listening to my talk, so I don't want to get too technical. But yeah, there's something called Angika, there's something called Aharya, there's something called Vachika, and there's something called Satvika. The Angika being the usage of the body or the senses, the Vachika being the deployment of the sounds, music, if you be, words, literature, instrumental music, maybe vocal music, whatever it is, Vachika. Aharya, which gives that little bit of a distinction between the real person and the actor, dancer, singer. When she changes or he changes his Aharya, garb. So today you're seeing me in, as Prathibha, as I am naturally. But most often you must have seen me on stage in my full Aharya, where I have, I'm dressed as the dancer. So that, getting into this whole idea of dressing up as a dancer, for me, was getting into a process of disconnecting Prathibha with the dancer Prathibha or the actor Prathibha, who the dancer. I'm the dancer, so I don't want to call myself an actor. So before stepping on stage, you leave your real self behind and you take your dancer self onto the stage. Because you're entering a space that is sacred, that is revered, and where you're meant to recreate illusion through the multiple stories that you're going to tell to an audience that is already living in an illusory world, so that both the audience and you get this release from this world into the permanent, immutable energy of the cosmos, Godhead. So without Shakti, I spoke about Prakriti, I spoke about Sambhuti Prakriti. But when you talk about nature, existence, creation, you say Mother Nature, Mother Earth, Mother Goddess. They are all interchangeable. Mother Nature, Mother Earth, Mother Goddess, all in the feminine gender and all governed by the feminine principle, and all three are interchangeable. So therefore, the term Shakti, the forceful, kinetic energy, Shakti, the ferocious, unbridled energy, Shakti, with its power to create, Shakti, the constant energy of movement, of mutation, of creation, of change, of dynamism, Shakti. So you have this definition of the dynamic energy that is responsible for all creation, all maintenance, and all reconstruction or recreation of the universe. Shakti, the feminine energy, is the mother responsible again, like I said, for all creation. Without Shakti, nothing would happen in the universe. Everything would be still. So Shakti, the mother goddess, Shakti, nature, Shakti. Okay, since all of you have joined me, I'm going to, start again. I'm just going to continue from where I left off. So the feminine, like I said in classical dance, is multi-layered. I was talking about Shakti. I was talking about Shakti, the goddesses, the cult of the goddess. And there are many other forms of the feminine that you see in dance, on the performance stage. So when you have, on the one side, you have goddesses and their supreme power as creators. So you see many dances and many songs, many paintings. But then let me talk about dance because I'm a dancer. When I talk, you dance the bija mantras, right? So each goddess, I'm talking about the original goddesses that we talk about, not the consort goddesses. We'll come to that later, but the original goddesses, the original, feminine energy, feminine power, Shakti. So when you dance the Dasha Mahavidyas, for example, or you dance any of those, goddesses in its pure form, not Uma, but Shakti, not, Parvati, but Kali, Tripura Sundari, those kinds of goddesses. So you also have bija mantras for all those goddesses. So the dancer then, dances the bija mantras. And most of these goddesses have multiple talents. And none of them have fear about anything because they have overcome the feeling of fear. And isn't that a beautiful thing that our goddesses knew no fear? It's when you're afraid that you get compromised, in many ways. You agree with me? When you're fearless, there's no question of anyone trying to box you or bind you in or to, tell you how to behave. So there are these goddesses, pure, and when we do the bija mantras, we describe, their beautiful form, their slender waist, their big hips, their lovely breasts, their beautiful faces, and with metaphors, analogies, and we also speak about, their, ferocity, their anger, their riding the tiger, and these are the wild goddesses, right? They're part of nature itself. They're part of creation itself because they were responsible for creation. And then you have the nayikas in the dance, on the dance stage. And these nayikas are the Devadasis initially, and now we call them the Nayakas, and they have this eternal longing for union with God. So, on the one hand, you have a pure female feminine energy which does not yearn to be merged with any god or goddess. So, just 1 second, please. Yeah? Huh? Yeah. Yeah. I'm continuing it. Yeah, I'm actually talking to you, and I think I'm, online. Yeah, because I asked some people when I can continue when the Wi-Fi came up, and they said I should. Yeah. All right. Sorry. This was a call from the server people from some superior from IGNCA. She wanted to know whether I was continuing. Are you all there? Listening to me? Okay. Okay, thank you. So I have a question and answer session after I finish. So you keep your questions ready, all of you, okay? So if you have any doubts from what I'm saying and how I'm relating this whole idea of Prakriti and performing arts, and you want to know if you have any, questions that you may want to ask me, keep your questions ready, and I'm going to come back to you in about 10 minutes once I finish this concept of the Nayika. On the one hand, there's the pure goddess I was telling you. On the one hand, we have this Nayika in performing arts and the female dancer. So therefore, it's very, very special, And the physical and the metaphysical intertwine in many, many levels. The physical female dancer is very special because Bharata, the author of Natya Shastra, that is generally accepted as the performative text of the art of theatrical practice, with dance being one of the main aspects of theater. He speaks only of the female dancer. Did you know that? When he describes the attributes of a dancer, he talks of the dancer only in feminine. But when he speaks about theater, he refers to both nat and nati. About dance, his reference is clearly addressed to the feminine body. He says the dancer should be neither too tall nor too short, neither too fat nor too thin. She must have a high bosom, a slim waist. She must be prasannamukhi, always smiling, with a smiling countenance. It's clear that the original dancer was conceived as feminine, though we refer to Nataraja as the god of dance, and to Krishna as Natnagar, the lord of dance. It is probably because the female is considered in our culture as both creator and creativity. That's all I've spoken to you all this while. I've spoken to you about the female, Prakriti, feminine gender, which is considered in our culture as both the creator, the God particle, and creativity, the Sambhuta Prakriti, the manifest Prakriti that we see around us. Well, I can't really talk about many other, sociological, factors that compromised aesthetics. But I would like to talk to you about patriarchy and how patriarchy, brought in its own set of philosophies and imagery. An interesting quote that I read on Women and Nature said, "Nature is like a woman who enjoys disguising herself and whose different disguises, revealing now one part and now another, permit those who study her to keep searching to know the whole of that person." Without going into the aspects of the other art forms, let me talk to you about how classical dance deals with the complex nexus of human passion and desire by transforming the instinctive urges into positive and well-defined channels of expression. I want to place before you 4 mutually exclusive representations of female embodiment in dance that is valid and that is generally accepted. So we view the whole gamut of sensuality and sexuality and as sacred as mutually exclusive categories. That was not so when you speak about the original form of creation, or the original goddess herself, the fertility goddess, the goddess with her with her power to create, who seduces Shiva and who urges him, the male form, you know, to enter into this process of creation. We never thought about the sacred or the sensual as mutually exclusive. But now we do. We do because of other factors of patriarchy that force us to do it. The belief that the sacred, religious, cannot be carnal or even evoke faint traces of sensuality is unacceptable. The primary depiction of the feminine is therefore as the sacred, Devi, Lakshmi, Saraswati, pure, untainted by senses or emotions, and whole, non-dependent on the male counterpart. I've just spoken to you about the Shakti heritage. Then there's, of course, Durga's triumph. There's Saraswati's wisdom. I started off this whole, you know, conversation um, by talking about this goddess, supreme goddess, who has the veena in her hand, and who plays music beautifully, who's beautiful of form, who's intelligent, and who was the daughter of the mountains. So we talk about Lakshmi's bounty. Just think about Lakshmi. She came from the ocean. She just emerged from the ocean. That's Lakshmi. And then of course you have, Devi, Mahakali, like I said, all the Dasha Mahavidyas in their purest form. They're absolutely non-domesticated. I mean, all these Dasha Mahavidyas we talk about, these Devis, they're pure Devis, are non-domesticated Devis. And that's what I say. When I say non-domesticated Devis, they had unbridled energy, and they were single women, and they were wild. They are seen as an extension of earth. They were seen as Panchabhuta, a pure element in its mysterious manifestation of cosmic fecundity. And I have spoken to you about this, about Prakriti being nature, being earth, being an extension of the Panchabhutas, being the Panchabhuta itself, the pure element, in its mysterious manifestation of cosmic fecundity. The Devi song, like I said, it's the visual of the Bija mantras, the physical form given detailed interpretation. So the goddess's sexuality, sensuality is interpreted as an earthly counterpart of the primal act of creation, free from all social controls, for the sole purpose of transcendence. Everything that we do is to transcend, is to be rid of this Maya or the illusory world we live in. It is free because it is primal energy and also transgresses social and moral boundaries set by society. The Puranas, the myths, emerged about how these powerful warrior goddesses, I spoke about the Dasha Mahavidyas, right? From nature, mother goddess Shakti to Dasha Mahavidyas, the warrior goddesses. They were forced wild goddesses into submission. The Puranas forced powerful warrior goddesses into submission. Unattached, the mother goddess was feared. Shakti was feared. Kali was feared. All of them. Bhairavi was feared. Matangi was the supreme mother manifestation. Tripura Sundari, in all her beauty, gorgeous, lovely woman, goddess, was feared. All these goddesses, Tara, the beautiful star, all these, Dasha Mahavidyas, warrior goddesses, they were considered untamable, and hence dangerous. So the Puranas wanted to check the powers of these goddesses and make them more tameable. And she had to be absorbed by the superior male counterpart. I spoke about patriarchy and how when patriarchy sets in, this unbridled, powerful devilish, wild, feminine energy gets compromised. The androgynous iconography and with its the various hymns are used to show the equality and interdependence between masculine and feminine forces in cosmic creation. That's the Narishwara concept. From being singularly responsible for creation, she was the God particle, she is the God particle, the kinetic force of the universe, Prakriti, responsible for all creation. The feminine now becomes equal in power and energy to the masculine forces. The most popular imagery, as I keep telling you again and again, is the archetypal image of Ardhanarishvara. Shiva, one half, Shakti, the other half. Half male, half female. So you have Shiva, I mean, are you all dancers? Do you know? I mean, one part of Shiva with his matted locks, the other part Parvati with her beautiful braids, Shiva with the moon, the crescent moon on his head, Parvati with beautiful jewelry and flowers on her hair, Shiva wearing the snake as the ornament, Parvati having lovely, lovely jewelry as the ornament, the bare-chested, powerful, what do they call it now? Six-pack abs. Shiva on the one side, the lovely bosomed, full-breasted Parvati on the other. So you see this beautiful iconography flows through Ardhanarishvara. Half female, half male. Songs from Shiva Purana and other texts, even recent ones, describe the magic of this androgynous form and the dancers interpret the beauty and awesomeness of this form in several ways. Its most feminist version being the cosmic depiction and revelation of gender equality and interdependence. The story, of course, states that Brahma found it difficult to continue with creation, and therefore he asked Shiva to, and then Shiva had to use Shakti. The Shiva and his androgynous form splits into Shiva and Shakti, Parvati at Brahma's request, and begins to function as an archetypal mother and father of the universe. But it's not true, right? Because the God particle is in the feminine gender, as I have, told you time and again throughout this talk today. Then you have the Radha Krishna, again an androgynous form of Radha and Krishna in iconography. I'm sure all of you know that imagery of Radha and Krishna. But here, Radha and Krishna are not equals. Krishna is the male god. Krishna represents patriarchal god. And Radha is the damsel who is in love with Krishna, who is devoted to Krishna, and for whom her moksha is at the feet of Krishna. So this Radha and Krishna iconography shows the triumph and perseverance of bhakti as the unifying force to merge with God. And in this case, clearly they speak about God as being male, masculine, whereas we know that the godhood, creation, creativity, and everything that is manifest, unmanifest, was always thought through and thought of in the feminine gender. Then there are, all of us are dancers, we are actors, we are musicians, so we know of the multiple stories, the multiple songs that we sing. So when we come to this idea of how these saints, alvars, the Namalvars, the Periyalvars, the Periyars, all of them assumed the form of the feminine to merge with the male personhood of God. I say this deliberately because what patriarchy did to our society was to create the image of God as male. And from this whole idea of the creation being in the feminine principle, it comes to this whole male personhood, which is identified with petty, undiscerning ego and the, and then the poem that I told you about, as the woman, the feminine, being deceitful because she seduces, so she's deceitful. Can you imagine? And she's wavering, she's deceitful, and therefore she is diverse. I don't think so. I think women are very secure in their identities, and hence they don't need to undergo a conversion or change, to merge anywhere or to merge with anyone. While men understood that it was feminine form and feminine energy that got them closer to the release, to moksha, and said therefore all these alvars and the nayanars, depending on which god they worshipped, they assumed um, female impersonation. um, Second is the reproductive model. The first was the unbridled goddess, and now you have the reproductive model. And like I said, this is the patriarchy model, which wants to control the female. So in this, you have Lakshmi, which is the most visible imagery of this model, where Lakshmi is demure, docile, and she's sitting at the feet of Vishnu and pressing his feet. Notwithstanding that Lakshmi also gets angry when Bhrigu, when he comes and he kicks Vishnu, but then it's a different story. But the most lasting imagery of Lakshmi is sitting at the feet of Vishnu and pressing his feet, smiling, demure, docile, while Vishnu lies on the serpent, the eternal serpent on the ocean. So I don't have a problem with this, domesticated image of the goddess, as long as she's given her respect and her place in this whole process of creation and creativity. But to curtail her freedom, to make her less than what she is or what she was known to be, to make her less sacred, less powerful, and less free is something I don't accept. Because I think the feminine, was born free and she'll be free, because creativity, which is in the feminine gender, is all pervasive and all around us. And without that, there can be no male energy. There is no male energy without feminine energy and feminine creative power. So then you have the fourth paradigm of the Naika, right? In dance. I don't know how many of you are dancers, but if you are, you'll understand what I'm saying. And this Naika is not a domesticated wife or a dutiful wife, but she's more an interesting depiction of the Naika as a paradigm of female embodiment. She represents free love. And as a representative of free love, she represents power, she represents independence, she represents strength unharnessed by male control. She could be likened to the courtesan, though not always, because she was in control of her own life initially, the Naika. She's a Ganika, or a woman given to pleasure. And men are mesmerized by her. They are intoxicated. They love her. They're captivated by her beauty, by her charms, by her smile, by her beautiful eyes, and flowing hair, and her lovely form. So, well, I'm a Bharatanatyam dancer, and I've also done Kuchipudi, but in Bharatanatyam and Kuchipudi that I practice, the most important depiction through dance is that of the Naika in her many moods. So the whole classical structure is sometimes pegged to this single woman and the story of her unrequited love, as the case may be, or her meeting with her lover. From its formative period in the seventh to the ninth century, South Indian poetry um, was permeated by erotic themes and images. In South Indian poetry, especially of the Tamil, Shaiva Nayanars, like I spoke about, or the Vaishnava Alvars, God appeared as a lover in many roles, inherited from the so-called Sangam period, filled with emotion of the man-woman nature. The historical continuum stretches from these, the poetry of the Sangam period, all the way to Kshetraya, Sarangapani, a millennium later. The Nayikas were the central heroines of all this kind of, poetry, a rich body of poetry, beautiful. They sang to their deities in the temples. They were allowed inside the sanctum sanctorum of the temples to sing, dance, worship. And so there they were considered sacred, not profane, sacred. So sensuality and sacredness went together in the worship of the Devadasis to the gods, the Nayikas. So the Nayikas passed through several fleeting emotions, and in dance, and also, I know painting, of course, and poetry, you have the depiction of the Ashtanayikas, the 8 heroines who show different stages of love, and ultimately, of course, it's all about union, with the lover. Well, historically, many things happen, but then I don't want to go into history because we can keep that for a different day. All that I want to tell you again and again is to remember that all creation is Prakriti. Prakriti is in the feminine gender. There is Mula Prakriti and Sambhuti Prakriti, while the original Mula Prakriti is the original form. It is not the modified form or the represented form. It is Sambhuti Prakriti, which is the representative form. And so therefore there's that little God particle between the process of creation and creation. And all that we see as creation, as manifest in our world, that we think or perceive as real, is actually unreal. And because we are living in this world of illusion, and as actors, dancers, singers, and artists, we're reinforcing the whole idea of creating another illusion within an already illusory world. So therefore, my gurus, my U.S. Krishna Rao and Chandrabhaga Devi, their dance school was called Mahamaya. I asked them once, why is it called Mahamaya, not just Maya? They said, Maya is this world that we live in, the illusory world we live in. According to all the, the great texts. And the actors and dancers are entering into another stage, perceived reality, but actually illusion, recreating human emotions for humans, recreating states of being for other beings, recreating situations, relationships, conflicts, peace, and all that goes with it, the gamut of human emotions for other human emotions. So while being in an illusory world, you're further reinforcing another, a situation of illusion. And so therefore they said it was Mahamaya, not just Maya, the illusory world, but Mahamaya, in which the dancer, actor, singer lives in. Thank you so much for listening to me, and I do hope we'll have the opportunity to reconnect again. If you have any questions, I'm here. You could type it out and I'll try to answer it. Thank you. Oh, thank you so much for all your lovely, lovely comments. Thank you so much for all that you've written. It's so nice to see so many of you over here. Thank you. Do you have any questions that I can answer? Parul, you're speaking about Purusha, and can there be any Purusha without Prakriti? I don't think so. Because, like I said, the male Purusha is static, while many people interpret it as the consciousness. That consciousness um, is of no use unless it creates uh, some sort of a dynamism and some process of movement, and that movement can come only because of the feminine energy, because of Prakriti, not because of Purusha. So no, there can be no Purusha without Prakriti. You're correct. I love all your comments actually. Thank you so much. Do you have any questions? Good evening. How nice to see all of you. Thank you so much.